I was folding laundry in my cramped studio apartment when my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. Family dinner tonight at 6? Important news to share. The exclamation point should have been my first warning, but I was too exhausted from pulling double shifts at the coffee shop and the bookstore to read between the lines. The October wind whipped through downtown Portland as I walked to my parents' house, my worn sneakers splashing through puddles on the cracked sidewalk. I'd been living paycheck to paycheck for 8 months since graduating college, and every family dinner felt like a reminder of how far behind I was compared to my younger brother Jake, who'd landed a marketing position at a tech startup right after his graduation ceremony. Mom's pot roast filled the familiar kitchen with its comforting aroma, but something felt different tonight. Dad kept checking his phone, and Jake had this smug grin that made my stomach twist. He was wearing a new button-down shirt that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. "So, what's the big news?" I asked, settling into my usual chair at the scarred wooden table where we'd eaten countless meals growing up. Mom practically bounced in her seat. "Well, honey, we've been keeping a secret for a few weeks now." She looked at Dad, who nodded encouragingly. "We bought Jake a house." The words hit me like a physical blow. I set down my fork and stared at them, waiting for the punchline that never came. Jake was beaming, pulling out his phone to show me photos of a gorgeous 2-story colonial with a manicured lawn and a 2-car garage in the suburbs. "It's in Beaverton," he said, swiping through pictures of granite countertops and hardwood floors. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. The master suite has a walk-in closet bigger than most apartments. I felt like I was watching this conversation happen to someone else. "You bought him a house," I repeated slowly. "Well, we helped with the down payment," Dad clarified, cutting into his meat with surgical precision. "Jake's got a good job now. Stable income. It made sense to help him get established." The room started to spin slightly. I thought about my own situation, the studio apartment with the broken radiator, the stack of overdue bills on my nightstand, the ramen noodles I'd been eating for dinner most nights. Just last month, I'd asked my parents for a small loan to cover my security deposit so I could move into a slightly better place. They'd said money was tight. That's amazing," I managed, my voice sounding hollow even to my own ears. "Congratulations, Jake." He had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. "Thanks, Nick. And hey, you know you're always welcome to crash at my place if you need to. The basement's finished. There's a couch down there and everything." The basement couch. As if I were some college friend who'd had too much to drink, not his sister who'd been struggling to afford basic necessities. "That's so generous of you both," Mom said, reaching over to pat my hand. "See, honey? You should be grateful. Not everyone has family who looks out for each other like this." Grateful. I should be grateful that my brother got a house while I got offered a basement couch. I should be grateful that my parents had money to help him, but not me. I should be grateful for the scraps. I excused myself to the bathroom, where I splashed cold water on my face and stared at my reflection. My blue eyes looked tired, and my blonde hair needed a good cut that I couldn't afford. When had I become the family charity case? When I returned to the table, they were discussing Jake's housewarming party plans. I picked at my food, nodding at appropriate moments, but inside I was calculating numbers. A house in Beaverton, even a starter home, would require at least a $60,000 down payment. That was more money than I'd made in the past 2 years combined. After dinner, I walked home through the drizzling rain, my thoughts churning like the dark clouds overhead. The unfairness of it all burned in my chest. Jake and I had similar grades in college. We'd both worked hard, but somehow he'd landed in a different universe where parents bought houses and I was supposed to be grateful for basement furniture. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Seriously, Nick, the couch is really comfortable. Memory foam. You could stay as long as you need." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Thanks, I'll think about it." But as I climbed the 3 flights of stairs to my apartment, dodging the loose handrail and the water stain on the ceiling, I knew I wouldn't be accepting his offer. I might be broke, but I still had my pride. At least I thought I did. 3 days after the dinner from hell, I was still replaying the conversation in my head when my landlord knocked on my door. Peterson stood in my doorway holding an eviction notice, his weathered face showing no emotion as he explained that the building had been sold to developers. "You've got 30 days, Nick," he said, almost apologetically. "I'm sorry, kid. I know you've been a good tenant, but there's nothing I can do." I stared at the official-looking document in my hands, the words blurring together. 30 days to find a new place in Portland's impossible rental market, where studio apartments were going for twice what I was currently paying. After Mr. Peterson left, I sat on my bed, which was also my couch, desk, and dining table, and did the math. Even working both jobs, I barely made enough to cover my current rent, utilities, and groceries. Finding something new would require first month's rent, last month's rent, and a security deposit. I'd need at least $3,000 I didn't have. My phone rang. It was my best friend Sarah calling from her lunch break at the nonprofit where she worked. "Hey, how are you holding up after the other night?" she asked. I texted her the basics after the family dinner, but hadn't gone into detail about how gutted I felt. "Well, it gets better," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "I'm getting evicted." "What?" "Nick, no. When?" 30 days. The building's being torn down for condos. I laughed bitterly. Maybe I should take Jake up on his generous basement couch offer after all. Sarah was quiet for a moment. "You know what? Maybe you should. Not permanently, but just to buy yourself some time to figure things out." "I can't, Sarah. The humiliation would kill me." "Your pride isn't going to keep you from being homeless," she said gently. "Look, I get it. The whole situation is messed up. But maybe you can use this as an opportunity to save money and get back on your feet." After we hung up, I walked to my shift at the coffee shop, my mind racing. The afternoon rush was brutal. Seemingly every person in downtown Portland needed their caffeine fix, and our espresso machine decided to break down halfway through. By the time I clocked out, my feet were killing me, and I smelled like vanilla syrup and burnt coffee. I was walking to my evening shift at the bookstore when I saw Jake's car parked outside. He was leaning against his shiny Honda Civic, looking nervous. "Hey," he said as I approached. "I was hoping to catch you. Can we talk?" I really didn't have time for this, but something in his expression made me stop. "I've got 5 minutes before my shift." "I know you're upset about the house thing," he began, shoving his hands in his pockets. "And I get it. I really do. But Mom and Dad, they're not trying to hurt you. They just think I'm more established." "More established?" I couldn't keep the edge out of my voice. "Jake, we graduated 6 months apart. The only difference is you got lucky with a job that pays well. It's not just about the job, Nick. It's about stability. You've been jumping from apartment to apartment, working different jobs. They worry about you. So they buy you a house and offer me a basement couch?" My voice was rising, and a few people on the street turned to look at us. "Do you not see how messed up that is?" Jake ran a hand through his hair, looking genuinely uncomfortable. "Look, I didn't ask for this. They surprised me too. But the offer stands. You can stay as long as you need to. No rent, no strings attached. Just until you get back on your feet." I was about to refuse again when my phone buzzed with a text from my bookstore manager. "Emergency. Can you cover for Marcus tonight? He's sick." Another double shift. Another day of scraping by while my brother worried about decorating his new 3-bedroom house. "I'm getting evicted," I said quietly. 30 days. Jake's eyes widened. "Nick, why didn't you tell me? This is perfect timing then. You can move in this weekend if you want." Perfect timing? As if losing my home was some kind of convenient coincidence. "I'll think about it," I said, though we both knew I was running out of options. "Hey, Nick," Jake called as I turned to go into the bookstore. "I know this whole situation is weird, but we're still family. I want to help." I nodded without turning around. Family. Right now, that word felt more like a burden than a blessing. Inside the bookstore, I threw myself into work, organizing shelves and helping customers find romance novels and self-help books. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was surrounded by stories about people overcoming obstacles and finding happiness, while I couldn't even afford to keep a roof over my head. Around 9 o'clock, an older woman approached the counter with a stack of books about financial planning and career development. "Starting over?" I asked as I rang up her purchase. She smiled. "In a way. My daughter's been letting me live with her since my divorce. But I think it's time I stood on my own 2 feet again. It's scary, but sometimes we need to take control of our own lives." As she left, her words echoed in my mind. Take control of my own life. Maybe she was right. Maybe swallowing my pride and accepting Jake's offer wasn't giving up. Maybe it was being smart enough to use every resource available to build something better. When I got home that night, I sat in my tiny apartment one last time and made a decision. I pulled out my phone and typed a text to Jake. "Okay, I'll take the basement couch, but just temporarily." His response came immediately. "Great. We'll make it work, I promise." I hoped he was right, because I was about to find out just how much family loyalty was really worth. Moving day arrived with the kind of November rain that soaks through everything and makes you question your life choices. I stood in Jake's driveway, looking up at the house that should have felt like salvation, but instead felt like a monument to everything I hadn't achieved. The colonial-style home was even more impressive in person than in the photos. Fresh paint, perfect landscaping, and a wraparound porch that belonged in a magazine. I could practically hear the mortgage payments from here. "Nick, you made it!" Jake bounded out the front door, genuinely excited. He was wearing weekend clothes that probably cost more than my monthly food budget. "Come on, let me show you around properly." I followed him through the front door, my duffel bag and 2 cardboard boxes containing my entire life feeling pathetic in comparison to the spacious entryway with its polished hardwood floors and chandelier. The living room was something out of a furniture catalog: leather sectional, 55-inch TV, and a coffee table that looked like it had never seen an actual coffee cup. "Kitchen's through here," Jake said, leading me past granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. "Help yourself to anything in the fridge. I usually keep it pretty stocked." The basement was accessed through a door off the kitchen. As we descended the carpeted stairs, I tried to prepare myself for what I'd be calling home for the foreseeable future. The space was larger than I'd expected, with wood paneling and recessed lighting that made it feel cozy rather than dungeon-like. "Here's your area," Jake said, gesturing to a corner that had been set up like a studio apartment. The promised couch was there, a sectional that looked more comfortable than my old bed, along with a small TV, a mini fridge, and a desk area. I had Mom help me put together some basic stuff. There's a bathroom right over there, and the laundry room is behind that door. I set down my belongings and looked around. It was nicer than anywhere I'd lived since college, which somehow made it worse. This was charity, pure and simple, and we both knew it. "It's great, Jake. Thank you. The Wi-Fi password is on that sticky note," he said, pointing to the desk. "And seriously, don't feel like you have to stay down here all the time. The whole house is yours to use." After he went back upstairs, I unpacked my meager belongings. My clothes fit in one drawer of the dresser Jake had provided. My books took up about a foot of shelf space. My laptop looked lonely on the oversized desk. I was arranging my toiletries in the bathroom when I heard voices upstairs. Through the thin ceiling, I could make out Jake talking to someone. A woman's voice I didn't recognize. "So your sister's living down there now?" the woman was saying. "Just temporarily. She's having a rough patch. That's sweet of you to help her out." Not everyone would let their sister move into their new house. I cringed. Even strangers were framing this as Jake's generous sacrifice, rather than acknowledging the fundamental unfairness of the situation. Later that evening, Jake knocked on the basement door. "Hey, I'm ordering pizza. Want to come upstairs and eat with us?" "Us?" "My girlfriend Ashley's here. You should meet her." I wasn't really in the mood for socializing, but I also wasn't ready to become a basement hermit on my first night. I found them in the kitchen, where Ashley was pouring wine into glasses that probably cost more than my hourly wage. Ashley was everything I wasn't: perfectly styled blonde hair, designer clothes, and the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about money. She worked in marketing at a startup downtown, which apparently was where she and Jake had met. "It's so nice to finally meet you," she said, giving me a hug that felt obligatory. "Jake's told me so much about you." "All good things, I hope," I replied, accepting a glass of wine. "He said you're really creative. That's so cool." I could never do the whole artist thing. Too much uncertainty, you know? The implication hung in the air. I wasn't an artist by choice. I was working service jobs because I couldn't get anything better. But I just smiled and nodded. Over dinner, Ashley dominated the conversation, talking about her work projects and a weekend trip she and Jake were planning to Seattle. I found myself studying their dynamic. The way she touched his arm when she laughed, how he lit up when she talked about their future plans. "So what's your 5-year plan?" Ashley asked me suddenly. "My 5-year plan?" "Yeah, like where do you see yourself? Career-wise, I mean." I felt Jake's eyes on me, and I could sense his discomfort. "I'm figuring it out," I said carefully, "taking things one step at a time." "That's smart," she said, though her tone suggested she thought it was anything but. "Sometimes you have to take your time to find your path. Find your path." As if I'd been wandering aimlessly through life rather than working my ass off just to survive. After Ashley left, Jake and I cleaned up the kitchen together. The domestic routine felt strange. We hadn't lived under the same roof since high school, and even then we'd mostly moved in different orbits. "Ashley seems nice," I said, loading plates into the dishwasher. "She is. She's been really supportive about you moving in. Some people might have been weird about it." "What do you mean?" Jake shrugged. "I don't know. Having your sister living in your basement when you're trying to start a relationship, but she gets that family comes first. Family comes first." I wondered if Ashley would feel the same way if she knew the full story. That Jake had gotten this house while I'd been struggling to make rent, that our parents had the money to help me but chose not to. That night, lying on Jake's memory foam couch in his finished basement, I stared at the ceiling and listened to the house settling around me. Upstairs, I could hear Jake moving around, probably getting ready for bed in his master suite with the walk-in closet. I thought about Ashley's question about my 5-year plan. The truth was, I'd stopped thinking that far ahead months ago. I'd been too busy trying to survive each day to dream about the future. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe I'd been so focused on getting by that I'd forgotten to actually live. I pulled out my phone and started researching. Job openings, apartment listings, career development programs. If I was going to be here temporarily, I might as well use the time to figure out my next move. The basement couch didn't have to be my destination. It could be my launching pad. For the first time in months, I fell asleep with something resembling hope. 2 weeks into my basement residency, I was starting to find a rhythm. I'd wake up before Jake, shower quietly, and slip out of the house before he and Ashley had their morning coffee routine. I'd work my shifts, come home late, and retreat to my corner of the basement. It was a delicate dance of coexistence that mostly worked. Until Thanksgiving. "You're coming to Mom and Dad's, right?" Jake asked me over breakfast. I'd ventured upstairs early that morning, hoping to grab coffee before he woke up, but found him already dressed and scrolling through his phone. I hadn't really thought about it, I lied. I'd been dreading Thanksgiving since moving in, knowing it would be another opportunity for my parents to celebrate Jake's success while treating me like their charity project. "Come on, Nick, it's Thanksgiving. Family tradition. Family tradition." The phrase felt loaded with expectations and obligations I wasn't sure I could handle. The dinner was exactly as uncomfortable as I'd anticipated. Mom had set the table with her good china, and Dad carved the turkey with the same methodical precision he brought to everything. Ashley was there too, having been seamlessly integrated into our family dynamic in a way that made me feel like an outsider in my own family. "So, Nick," Dad said as we passed around the side dishes, "how's the job search going?" "I'm working on it," I said, focusing on my plate. "Maybe you should consider going back to school," Mom suggested. "Get some additional training. Ashley was telling us about those digital marketing boot camps. They're supposed to be really good," Ashley chimed in. "Fast track to a real career. A real career, as opposed to my fake careers at the coffee shop and bookstore?" "I looked into some programs," I said, "but they're expensive and I'd need to take time off work to attend." "Well, maybe that's an investment you need to make," Dad said. "Sometimes you have to spend money to make money." The irony was suffocating. They'd just spent $60,000 on Jake's house, but I was supposed to figure out how to pay for my own career development. "Speaking of investments," Mom said brightly, "Jake, tell Nick about the furniture store." Jake looked uncomfortable. "It's not a big deal." "What furniture store?" I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew. "Mom and Dad helped me pick out some things for the living room," Jake said quietly. "The sectional, the dining set. Helped you pick out or helped you pay for?" The silence stretched across the table like a chasm. Ashley suddenly became very interested in her cranberry sauce. "We wanted to help him get properly settled," Mom said defensively. "A house isn't a home without furniture." "How much?" I asked. "Nick, it's not about the money," Dad said. "How much?" Jake cleared his throat. "About $8,000 on furniture. While I was eating ramen and wearing the same 3 outfits to work because I couldn't afford anything new." "That's great," I said, my voice artificially bright. "Really great." The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of forced conversation and tight smiles. I helped clear the table, declined dessert, and made an excuse about having to work early the next morning. Jake drove me home in silence. As we pulled into his driveway, he finally spoke. "Nick, I know what you're thinking." "Do you?" "You're mad about the furniture thing, and I get it, but I didn't ask for any of this. They just keep helping, and I can't exactly say no. Can't you?" I turned to face him. "Have you ever actually tried saying no? Have you ever asked them why they can help you but not me?" Jake stared at the steering wheel. "It's complicated." "It's really not. They have money. They choose to spend it on you. That's not complicated, Jake. That's favoritism. That's not fair." "You're right. It's not fair. None of this is fair." I got out of the car and went straight to the basement, where I lay on my borrowed couch and stared at the ceiling. The house felt different now. Less like a temporary refuge and more like a prison built from my own inadequacy. The next morning, I woke up to voices upstairs. I checked my phone. It was barely 7 a.m., too early for Jake to be up on his day off. I could hear my parents' voices mixed with Jake's, and curiosity got the better of me. I crept to the top of the basement stairs and listened. "She's been so moody lately," Mom was saying. "I think she's having a hard time adjusting." "She's jealous," Dad replied bluntly. "She sees what Jake has accomplished and feels sorry for herself." "Maybe we should talk to her," Mom suggested. "Help her understand that life isn't about comparing yourself to others. Some people just need to learn to work harder," Dad said. "Nick's always been the type to take the easy path." The easy path. I thought about my double shifts, my 2 jobs, my nights spent applying for better positions that never materialized. The easy path. I heard Jake's voice, quieter than the others. "Maybe we could help her with some money for school or something." "We've already done enough," Dad said firmly. "She's living rent-free in a beautiful house. She needs to figure out the rest herself. But if we can help Jake with a house and furniture, why can't we help Nick with education? Because Jake has shown he's responsible with money. He has a stable job, a good relationship, a future. Nick needs to prove she can handle responsibility before we invest in her. I'd heard enough. I went back downstairs, packed my 2 boxes and duffel bag, and sat on the couch waiting for them to leave. When I heard their car pull out of the driveway, I went upstairs to find Jake in the kitchen, looking miserable. "I'm leaving," I said simply. "Nick, wait. You heard that conversation, didn't you?" "I heard enough. They don't speak for me. I don't agree with them. But you don't disagree with them either, do you?" "Not really." Jake was quiet for a long moment. "Where will you go?" "I'll figure it out. I always do." "This is stupid. You're throwing away a good situation because your feelings are hurt." "My feelings are hurt?" I laughed bitterly. "Jake, this isn't about hurt feelings. This is about respect. This is about being treated like I matter." "You do matter." "Not enough. Not enough for them to treat me like their daughter instead of their disappointment." I picked up my boxes and headed for the door. Jake followed me. "Nick, please don't do this." "I have to. I can't keep living like this, accepting scraps and being grateful for them." "So what's your plan?" I honestly didn't have one. But as I walked away from Jake's perfect house with my imperfect life packed into 2 boxes, I realized that maybe not having a plan was exactly what I needed. Maybe it was time to stop accepting what other people thought I deserved and start fighting for what I actually wanted. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Sarah found me sitting on her apartment steps at 8 in the morning, my 2 boxes and duffel bag beside me like a statement of defeat. She took one look at my face and unlocked her door without asking questions. "Coffee first. Explanations later," she said, leading me inside. Her studio apartment was smaller than Jake's basement, but it felt like freedom. We sat on her futon, warming our hands around steaming mugs while I told her everything. The overheard conversation, my parents' casual cruelty, the moment I realized I'd rather be homeless than live as their charity case. "You can stay here as long as you need," Sarah said when I finished. "The couch is yours. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. There's a difference." That afternoon, fueled by coffee and righteous anger, I did something I'd never done before. I applied for 23 jobs in one day. Not just any jobs, positions that matched my education and abilities. Marketing coordinator, social media manager, content creator. Jobs that required confidence I wasn't sure I had. "What changed?" Sarah asked, watching me type furiously on my laptop. "I realized I've been playing small," I said, not looking up from the screen. "I've been so focused on just surviving that I forgot I was supposed to be living." 3 days later, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Nick Sullivan?" "This is Maria Rodriguez from Creative Solutions Marketing. We received your application for the marketing coordinator position." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Yes, that's me. We'd like to schedule an interview. Are you available tomorrow afternoon?" I was scheduled to work at the coffee shop, but for the first time in months, I prioritized my future over my fear. "Yes, I'm available." The interview was in a converted warehouse in the Pearl District, all exposed brick and open floor plans. Maria was about my age, with short black hair and the kind of energy that made you want to sit up straighter. She walked me through the company's client roster, local restaurants, boutique shops, a few small nonprofits. "We're looking for someone who can grow with us," she said. "Someone creative, hungry, willing to take on multiple projects. The salary isn't huge to start, but there's room for advancement." She offered me $38,000 a year. Not amazing, but sustainable. More importantly, she offered me respect. She talked to me like I was a professional, not someone who needed saving. "When can you start?" she asked. 2 weeks, I suggested, thinking about giving proper notice at my current jobs. "Perfect. Welcome to the team." I walked out of that building feeling like I could fly. For the first time in months, someone had looked at my resume and seen potential instead of problems. That evening, I was cooking dinner in Sarah's tiny kitchen when Jake called. "Nick, where are you? I came home and all your stuff is gone." "I moved out, Jake. I told you I was leaving." "I thought you were just angry. I thought you'd cool off and come back." "I'm not coming back." There was a long pause. "Where are you staying?" "With Sarah. And I got a job. A real job." That's great. Really great." He sounded genuinely happy, but also confused. "So you're okay?" "I'm better than okay. I'm done accepting less than I deserve." "Nick, about what Mom and Dad said, it doesn't matter what they said. What matters is what I do next. Are you going to tell them about the job?" I thought about it. Part of me wanted to call them immediately, to prove that I wasn't the failure they thought I was. But a bigger part of me realized I didn't need their validation anymore. "Eventually," I said, "when I'm ready." My first day at Creative Solutions was everything I'd hoped for and more. Maria introduced me to the team, 5 other 20-somethings who were building something from scratch. My desk was by a window overlooking the river, and my first project was developing a social media campaign for a local bakery. Don't overthink it, Maria said, perching on the edge of my desk. Trust your instincts. That's why we hired you. Trust my instincts. I'd forgotten I had any. 6 weeks later, I was walking through downtown Portland after work, still wearing my professional clothes and feeling like I belonged in them, when I ran into Ashley coming out of a boutique. Nick, oh my God, you look amazing. Is that a new jacket? It was. My first purchase with my new salary. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Earned with my own hard work. Thanks. How are you? Good, good. Jake's been worried about you. He said you got a job? I did. Marketing coordinator at a creative agency. That's wonderful. You must be so relieved. Relieved. Not proud, not accomplished. Relieved like I'd narrowly avoided disaster rather than actively pursuing success. I should get going, I said. Tell Jake I said hi. Actually, we're having people over for dinner this weekend. You should come. I know he'd love to see you. I considered it. The old me would have said yes, would have been grateful for the invitation, but the new me, the me who had her own desk and her own projects and her own future, had other plans. Thanks, but I'm busy this weekend. Maybe another time. As I walked away, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt or resentful or consumed with the unfairness of it all. I was just done. Done with letting other people's limitations define my possibilities. That night, I called my parents. Not because I needed their approval, but because I wanted to share my news on my own terms. Nick! Mom sounded surprised. We were just talking about you. How are you doing? I'm doing well. I wanted to let you know I got a new job. Marketing coordinator at a creative agency downtown. That's wonderful, honey. We're so proud of you. I also got my own apartment. Small place in Southeast, but it's mine. There was a pause. That's great. Are you happy? Yes, I said and meant it. I really am. We should have dinner soon, celebrate your new job. I'd like that. After I hung up, I sat in my new apartment, 600 square feet of hardwood floors and tall windows and possibilities, and thought about how far I'd come. Not just geographically from the basement couch to my own place, but mentally. I'd stopped waiting for someone else to rescue me and started rescuing myself. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Proud of you. You did it. I had done it. Not perfectly, not without stumbling, but I'd done it. I'd figured out that the opposite of being grateful for scraps wasn't being ungrateful. It was believing I deserved the whole meal. And for the first time in my adult life, I was finally ready to eat.